perhaps Nick would take a nibble, although he did refuse to paddle on the river.
No, I won't dive into the Ohio yet. To me, these lovely rivers, in the sense of we're located by a river, are such a disappointment in some ways that they could be so much better, so much more, not just a recreational resource, but a whole ecosystem functioning again. The main problems are that all the cities along the Ohio and down through the Mississippi, when it rains heavily, we have what we call combined sewer overflows that just charge basically raw sewage into the waterways.
So it's up to each community to have a conscience and regulate those, or it's up to the federal government to order them to?
Well, that's the old paradigm, that the federal government has a thing called the State Revolving Fund that funds large infrastructure, pipes in the ground, sewage and waterworks. But in some ways that's a fundamentally flawed system. We've inherited that almost from the Romans, in the sense of the concept using gravity, which is obviously cheap, to flow water downhill. But unfortunately, rain infiltrates into that system, and we have combined sewer overflows, which means we actually take the rainwater, mix it with the sewage, and that overloads the sewage treatment work, so they have to bypass straight into the river. So the whole system is really fundamentally flawed. And worse, we're running out of some of the nutrients, and we use a lot of energy to put nitrogen and phosphorus back into the soil. So why waste our nutrients from our food into our sewage, into the waterways to cause algal blooms, rather than not take those nutrients straight back to agriculture?
So that would be a permaculture concept of recycling waste, but human waste.
We don't call it waste anymore, they're resources.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got energy in the sense of the organic, so the residual food and fecal organic matter is fantastic energy. If you actually were to harvest all the energy out of the sewer, you could reduce a third of this country's nuclear power plant production for electricity. There's that much energy we're just wasting down the sewers.
What's the fundamental thing holding us back here? Fear of our own poop?
Well, there's the ick factor that I think it's called here. It's called the yuck factor in some other parts of the world. We've learned and been trained as kids to stay away from poo. It's dirty, it's unhygienic. And it is, and it can be. But on the other hand, there are certainly safe ways of managing it, and diluting it with good quality drinking water, flushing it down a toilet to pollute our waterways. And you think about it, it's not a very sensible solution. Back in the 1970s, when the US EPA was created, there was a fantastic feeling around it of changing the way the country was going, in the sense of just polluting itself to death. And to some degree, it certainly turned the tide on that. There are major reforms and effects. But that enthusiasm has waned. Political constraints and huge amounts of bureaucracy and so forth have got in the way. But luckily the EPA has seen that that's a problem, and so I was invited, along with only half a dozen others, to bring in some new blood and direction to really refocus what the EPA could be doing here in this country.
Cincinnati in particular must be a challenge for you to have come here. Right?
And Cincinnati historically has been the hub, being on the river. In the 1910s, 20s, there were a lot of cholera, typhoid outbreaks, and there was public health service laboratories that were brought on board to investigate these outbreaks. And so it's had a long history, in fact, since about 1914, here in Cincinnati, looking at water quality. And that is why the US EPA stationed its water-related research activities here in Cincinnati, and that is why I ended up here in Cincinnati. This is the focus for water and engineering for the US EPA's research group.
One can ask the former and future mayor anything. She runs with it.
Ms. Qualls, we are glad that you're back from Cambridge. Is it tough on you being back in Cincinnati?
No, I love Cambridge, I love Boston, but I also love Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a city that's under a major consent decree between the city of Cincinnati, Hamilton County, and the US EPA. And it's because of things called combined sewer overflows. Theoretically, we could end up spending up to $3 billion to correct this problem, and it's not an option. And right now, the Metropolitan Sewer District is trying to demonstrate to the federal EPA that there are what would be considered to be green infrastructure solutions, that while those solutions wouldn't totally eliminate the cost, they could significantly reduce the cost. And the measures include such things as, yes, rainwater harvesting. It also includes such things as really looking at permeable landscapes. It means that the city of Cincinnati has to change its codes to allow for things which, such as that you can divert rainwater off your rooftop to barrels and you can use that for your gardens and those types of things. But it also means doing major infrastructure projects.
Right. The poop must be handled better somehow.